Good evening, everyone from this part of the world, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us for this special session under the CBSE Global Webinar Series. The initiative is all about building bridges between CBSE students and some of the most forward-thinking universities around the world, helping you explore global academic opportunities with clarity and confidence. Today, we are absolutely delighted to host a session with Northeastern University, USA, an institution renowned for its experiential learning model, global partnerships, and innovation driven approach to education. With campuses across the world and a strong focus on real world readiness, Northeastern stands out as a place where learning truly meets life. We are privileged to have with us an exceptional panel. Karan Arora, welcome, Manager, International Enrollment for Global Campuses. And of course, Ms. Anushka Sapra. She is the Senior Assistant Director for Global Pathways and Recruitment. With her deep understanding of international admissions and student engagement, she brings a wealth of insight to this session. And of course, Mr. Arjun Seth, curator and moderator of these series, who continues to guide our conversations with a sharp focus on student success and global citizenship. Today's discussion will focus on navigating admissions and a slight touch on the scholarship opportunities, if possible, at Northeastern University. What makes a successful application, how timelines and planning matter, and what CBSE students can do to really shine in the process. We'll also hear about real life student journeys and how essays, extracurriculars, and recommendations can play a powerful difference. We hope you'll make the most of this session, ask your queries, take notes, and come away with practical guidance that supports not just admission, but purpose driven career planning. In the spirit of, as we all say here in India, in the spirit of NEP 2020. Let's diving over to you, Arjun sir, and we're ready for the session now. Thank you so much and welcome everyone again.
Good evening, everyone. Today is actually a pretty special session. We have two panelists with us from Northeastern University, and the topic that we will focus on, besides admissions trends and admission strategies students can follow, will be very crucial for today's day and age, which is what is the role of higher education to make students robot-proof? And by that, I mean, we've heard of the Future of Jobs report where 23% of the roles as we know it are going to change drastically in maybe 3 years or 2 years. Perhaps 60 million, new roles will be created. These are not jobs; these are like roles with multiple jobs in it. And 83 million sort of new, or old roles will vanish. Northeastern has been at the kind of front runner in terms of designing a curriculum, a pedagogy, a methodology, and a very global outlook towards this education. So today's session is going to focus on understanding how higher education institutions like Northeastern have done what they're doing to be future ready and make their students truly robot proof. So over to you, Karan or Anushka. You can kick off this session by telling us a little bit about Northeastern, a quick overview, and then maybe delve deeper into the aspect of how students become robot proof.
I can kick us off. Just right off the bat, thank you once again, Neeti ma'am, and of course Arjun for putting together this session. We've been tuning into all of the previous ones, and it's an absolute honor and privilege to be part of the panel this time around. And I think it's a fantastic way for us to continue to share information and access to this knowledge that sometimes gets lost in the websites and things like that. Anushka and myself are both very excited to be here, obviously because of what I've just mentioned, but also because both of us were Indian students, just like the ones we're speaking to, right? We both studied in India and then went off to our respective institutions in the US, so feel very passionately about the role that we currently have in helping students in our country navigate this seemingly complicated admissions process that gets more and more complicated every single year, but also celebrating the students' successes, what they've been able to achieve both inside and outside the classroom. And for us to do so and represent an institution like Northeastern has been a huge gift, right? Northeastern is among the leading research institutions in the country. We are part of what we like to call a global campus network with a presence now in multiple parts of the globe, New York City, Oakland, California, London, England, and of course, Boston, Massachusetts, which we're most commonly known for. But I think more so than just having campuses in each of these locations is the manner in which we integrate our student experience across each of our campuses as well. We believe very strongly in what you will hear a lot in today's session, the concept of experiential learning and what that means both inside, but more importantly, outside the classroom. But for us, Northeastern is a place that is unique and special for more reasons than one. We obviously know that we are giving our students a world-class educational experience. But I think both Anushka and I say this with a lot of confidence and pride when we speak with students, is that we're actually more excited about what we're being able to deliver them outside the classroom. Of course, robust and diverse student body that they get to interact with. And it's just an absolute treat to see the students that we have seen from high school come through Northeastern, graduate, and go on to do some fantastic things as well. So with that, I'll toss it over to my colleague Anushka to sort of add to that, and then we can dive into some more questions as well.
The CBSE team. Arjun, thanks for having us here today. I think Karan gave a great overview of where Northeastern stands in the current landscape of global institutions, especially institutions in the US and the UK, where most students who are listening in might be considering a destination for higher education. The only thing I'll add for the piece that you mentioned, Arjun, the robot-proof piece, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this throughout the session today, but you'll find that there's elements of both the academic experience at Northeastern, but also the experiential learning components that Karan mentioned that really emphasize students developing skills that make them robot-proof, make them ready to enter the workspace, the workforce as it currently stands today. And that is through one in our academic space, through our new path requirements. We can talk more about this, of course, if you have more in-depth questions. But just to give a quick overview, it's our general education curriculum that Northeastern has, but it's different from your typical general education curriculum at other universities. Northeastern's new path or general education curriculum focuses on competencies. And in fact, a few of our competencies now focus in on understanding AI and data-driven approaches to the students' major of study. So that is, a space where students are taking courses that are giving them the skills and tools that they need to understand what their interests, what it looks like in terms of academics and a career, what that looks like in the current day and age with the realities of the workforce and technology as it exists today. So it actually is preparing them not just for a career in the industry that they're interested in, but for a career in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, whatever the class we're talking about is. And it's very, very specific to that time. So I think that is one space where academically students are really leveling up and are able to ensure that the skills that they're bringing to the workforce are resilient. But also I think the experiential learning piece, and I'm sure again, we'll talk about the co-op program as really being the space where students are in industry and they're not just passively learning about what their jobs that they're potentially interested in after graduation. They're not just passively learning about what that looks like in the classroom and then waiting to graduate and then to get into it. They are part of the teams that are actively working in those spaces while they're a student. And so they are seeing how the realities technologically and otherwise are impacting different work areas and they're on the forefront of teams that are trying to overcome that and adopt that and really bring that in. So it's super interesting to watch our students navigate finding interesting careers, finding their path in this time where I think I can speak for myself. I think about being a fresh graduate years ago. And if I was a fresh graduate now, I don't know if I would have all the skills and tools necessary to navigate the current job market and the landscape as it currently stands. But I take a lot of pride in our alums and our current students who I think are more than prepared through the variety of opportunities that they have. But I think that was a quick overview. I know you have some questions for us, so I'll throw it back to you, Arjun.
Yes, I was reading your president, Professor Joseph Aoun's book, and he talks about 3 literacies: human literacy, data literacy, and tech literacy, and how these merge together, and the pedagogy at Northeastern, at schools which are very progressive like Northeastern, are moving in that direction. They see those interconnections between these disciplines And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at Northeastern. What kind of examples would you sort of give of students who've been able to do that successfully and are now changing the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So Humanics is what President Aoun calls it, is the integration of these three, or the overlap rather, of these three literacies. And we had the good fortune of hosting an event for him surrounded around this book at the tail end of last year, and it is actually wonderful to just hear him talk about it, because this is not something that he thought about overnight. This is years of being in the education world in motion. And I think what he really gets at is that the most successful people that he has interacted with, and that obviously the students from Northeastern that he's trying to move out into the workforce, are students that have been able to really navigate each of these three literacies, as well as integrate them in the most unique manner, right? So, human literacy, of course, is fairly self-explanatory, and you talk about how to understand human beings. So you don't necessarily need a psychology degree for that. You just need to be able to have various soft skills of empathy and really position yourself with being relatable to the interaction that you're having, right? Technological literacy, of course, is understanding what these machines that we talk about so often as possibly replacing and taking our jobs, what do they actually do? Because to understand how to combat this, we really need to understand what these things are doing in the first place. And then, of course, data literacy. Again, I think I speak for both Anushka and myself, and she alluded to it, but it's becoming one of the most important aspects across industry. Regardless of what you might be doing as a professional, or regardless of the industry that you're in, the ability for you to work with data, feel comfortable handling data, and understanding how that's impacting your line of work is so crucially important. And once again, I don't necessarily mean, or I don't think that this is synonymous with you taking computer science classes, or you taking, very STEM heavy classes, but just the ability to understand what problem you have on your plate, and how the data that you're presented with regarding the solution problem, is getting you one step closer toward a solution as well. So the whole Northeastern curriculum, in some way, shape, or form, is modeled around what the integration of these three literacies are. Again, President Aoun says it really well when he talks about the acquisition of knowledge, and then actually applying it in the classrooms and making it contextual, and then actually putting it into the workforce as well. So for us, every single class that we teach at Northeastern across our campus network, every single co-op and internship related opportunity that we have put into our Rolodex and portfolio that we offer our students, has aspects of each of these literacies, if not all three combined, that is really setting our students up for success.
Sounds great. I think this whole idea of getting students to early sort of engage in these three literacies and giving them sort of opportunities through co-op and other sort of clinic programs with industry. Would it be fair to say that these students have an edge when they enter workforce, because they have perhaps over a period of those 4 years, while doing co-ops, or even taking that extra semester to work in a company, or maybe two semesters to do that, sets them up for what skills that they can develop further, or things that they like, what kind of environments that they like, how do they apply what they learn in the classroom? What would you say are really great examples of co-op programs, and how would you explain co-op programs to someone who's heard it for the first time?
Co-op is sounds more complicated than actually is. I think most students are familiar with internships, right? In a typical college experience, usually students have in mind that they're going to spend the summer in between each academic year, getting some work experience, doing a 2 to 3 month internship, and really just growing professionally in that way. So co-op is essentially an internship, but fast-tracked and on steroids. So it's an internships times 10, right? If you're thinking about what co-op looks like for Northeastern, it's essentially, first of all, short for cooperative education. And it's the idea that students have opportunities to leave the classroom environment and gain real life work experience while still being college students. A Northeastern co-op is usually around 6 months, and a traditional Northeastern undergraduate degree, which is 4 years, for every major at the university, allows for 2 co-ops for an on-time graduation of 4 years. Now, if a co-op is 6 months and you're doing 2 co-ops in 4 years, that's about a year's worth of full-time work experience on a student's resume by the time they graduate. A year of full-time work experience is actually about double the average college student in the US in terms of what they graduate with. So our students are have a level up again in terms of just the amount of work experience that they've been able to partake in. But more than just the amount of it, it's the depth of the work experience that students engage with on co-op. Because if, like I said, it's 6 months and it's full time, where you're working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 40-hour work weeks, essentially as a full-time employee at the entry level at the company that students are working for and co-oping with. So it's a very substantial responsibility. Students are usually tasked with the same kind of responsibilities that full-time employees at the entry level at that company are responsible for. So it's not your typical intern tasks that sometimes students are given tasks that nobody else wants to do. And it's just sort of the administrative work that goes into an organization. Co-ops are really important for students to be able to test out a career for 6 months. That's the idea behind all of it, to see what they think they like academically and what they think they want to do as a career, what that actually looks like. And to my previous point, what it looks like in today's day and age and the realities of the workforce. So I think it's a really exceptional opportunity for students to get full-time work experience, to make connections in industry, test something out for 6 months. And if they figure out, a lot of our students in their first co-op realize that they don't really like what they thought they would like, right? You grow up watching Suits, turns out being a lawyer is not that, right? And then you do that and you're in a law office and you're, working around other lawyers and you're a paralegal, you're doing all these things. And you realize maybe this is not what I thought it was going to be. And I like these elements of what I'm doing, but I don't like these elements. Or I don't think I like working for a massive company, which my first co-op is with. I think I want to be at a smaller organization, where maybe a boutique company where I have a lot more responsibility and the team is really small and I know everyone that I'm working with. Maybe I like a manager that is, checking in on me every day and giving me very, very clear instructions of what needs to be done. Maybe I'm someone who doesn't want that level of micromanagement. I prefer to work independently. I want to be given goals and I want, a regular check-in every now and then. These are all aspects to co-op that I think sometimes students don't think about, because they're equally important lessons that you come away with through work experience. And the fact that our students get to do that as early as the second semester of their second year, and again sometime in their third or fourth year, it's really, really invaluable in terms of what it tells students about themselves. And just to really hone in on where students are going to co-op. There's about 4,000 co-op employers in the Northeastern co-op network. They're based all over the world, and they take Northeastern students exclusively for their co-op positions. So co-op positions are posted to an internal database that students have access to. They get a co-op advisor who helps them navigate that database. For a lot of our students, the first time they do a co-op is the first time they've applied to a full-time job. And, that can be pretty intimidating in and of itself. And so the co-op advisor is there to support them with that, help them write out their resumes and cover letters, get those approved, help them practice interview skills, technical interviews, behavioral interviews, give them a sense of what the company is like that they're working for, that they're applying to, maybe put them in touch with alumni from Northeastern at that company so they can talk more with them about what the work culture is like at the company, get a sense of what a typical salary should be for that role. 98% of our co-ops are paid positions at industry standard salaries. And so a lot of different things go into getting this kind of a work experience. And so our co-op advisors are really the backbone to making it all happen. And we, just to give you some examples, I know students who have done co-ops right here in the Boston area, students who have gone all around the US to cities that they've always wanted to live in, students who have gone abroad for a co-op as well. We've had several students from India do one co-op in the US, one co-op in India, if that's something that they wanted to do. Another student that I used to know really well before she graduated just a few weeks ago, Ali, did her co-op in Copenhagen in Denmark, and she worked for, she was an environmental science and electrical engineering combined major, and she did her co-op with Copenhagen and the city's public transportation division, the government division, and really trying to understand how they make it work with having so many bike lanes and so many sustainable methods of transportation, and everyone still gets where they need to on time, but how lessons from them can be applied to a much different public transportation landscape here in the US. So it's just an example of really where you can take your learning in terms of what students are interested in, but I hope that gives the students listening in a sense of what co-op can really be.
Thank you, Anushka. The other thing which we notice in students is they all are thinking of the future in terms of what jobs will be available, but a few have that mindset, which is to build stuff, to create, instead of being sort of considering themselves to be a victim. They want to take ownership and roll up their sleeves and say, what can I do about this problem? And not just analyze and wax philosophically about the world and where it is today. The grand challenges students face and sort of embrace are something that really marks them as different when they enter the workforce or create their own organizations. You alluded to the one student who had combined two majors, her engineering and environmental science majors. That's a fantastic way to sort of look at how students are thinking today. What else would you talk about when you say a university like Northeastern is doing to provide resources for students to come together, build things, solve problems, and instead of just maybe doing it the old-fashioned way and becoming perhaps scholars but not practitioners?
Love that question, Arjun, and I think it's so apt because many students, and I think being from this part of the world and having studied in India, I can say most Indian students are sometimes told exactly what their path should be, and it's wonderful to see our Indian students arrive on campus, whether it's Boston, London, Oakland, or New York, and really have a new world opened up for them, right? And I think one of the aspects of that is because when students apply to Northeastern, they're not applying to a particular major, they're actually applying to the university and have the ability to take as many different classes as they would like, obviously for a finite period of time before they do declare their major. And what that does is that it goes hand in hand with what Anushka was talking about in terms of competencies, right? It allows them to gain a skill set that they didn't necessarily think that they would get, which they don't necessarily know how it's going to help them down the line in a profession or industry that they go into. So said student who's economics and environmental studies major might not understand the value of an urban planning internship or a co-op that they're doing, but 5 or 6 years down the line, they're taking aspects of what they have learned and been able to imbibe at that co-op and applied in the profession that they're in as well. And I think it just goes in it's really pervasive in that not only does it happen inside the classroom, but it's happening through our co-ops, it's happening through the interactions that these students are having with their advisors and co-op mentors and even fellow students, right? And I think it really does boil down to know that you are going to an undergraduate degree in the next couple of years with an idea of what jobs currently exist in the market. I think we can say with a certain level of confidence that on graduation day, not only will those jobs exist and those industries exist, but there will be 150 more opportunities and 225 more roles that you never thought that could actually be available, that suddenly are available to you, right? And we see that every single year with every single graduating class, that they are able to pivot very quickly and redirect themselves purely based on them getting a very universal and transferable skill set through the Northeastern experience. And that's been our goal from day one. Obviously, we want to give students a specialty degree. They are obviously picking a major and graduating within that major as well. But over the course of their 4, maybe 5 years with us at Northeastern's undergraduate degree, they're getting this skill set that we have seen be very, very useful, regardless of the industry that they eventually go into. Not sure if Anushka wants to add any more examples, because I know she spends a lot of time with some of these students, but I really think that this aspect of the competency model of education for us has really rung true and been one of the strongest pillars that we have with our students.
A little bit more. I think the competency-based new path curriculum that we have is absolutely a big space where students are able to broaden what they think they like or what they think they know and develop more skills than just that. You mentioned the combined majors, Arjun. I think combined majors are incredibly underrated because it's just, we're talking about a changing work climate, a changing workforce, and more we realize that the new roles you're talking about, not just new positions, but new careers, new industries, they're intersectional in nature. And so what combined majors allow you to do is take 2 different disciplines, bring them together and study them as one interdisciplinary area of study that is taught by faculty that are working in that intersection and researching in that niche intersection. So it is already preparing students for the workforce of the current day and age, and realizing that disciplines are continually being informed by each other, and the combinations are truly endless. Over half of Northeastern's 300 programs at the undergraduate level are combined majors, and they're continuously adding more each year, with students coming up with new combinations that they want to make. We have combined majors in computer science and music. We have combined majors in psychology and journalism. Computer science and business is a really big popular one with our Indian students. And so there's so many options. So I just wanted to highlight combined majors as a big space as well, that Northeastern is really setting itself apart in terms of preparation for the current workforce. Co-ops and experiential learning, of course. But then also a lot of our student clubs and extracurricular activities, a lot of the resources that the colleges at Northeastern provide students, access to each other, access to resources in terms of monetary resources, alumni who are working in those spaces. We have a lot of students, for example, from India that come on to be computer science and business administration students here at Northeastern, one of our most popular combined majors. A lot of them, and I know a couple of them who are members of the 360 Huntington Fund, which is a mutual fund, Northeastern's mutual fund, where $1 million are managed by our students. Of Northeastern's money is managed by our students, and they have, faculty advisors, they have industry experts that advise them continually. Students join typically as analysts, I believe, at the lowest level of the 360 Huntington Fund, go on to become much more senior members of the fund. And again, it's the students managing Northeastern's money. And I think when you can entrust, when a university that essentially, has to be careful of the resources it has, and it's entrusting a good chunk of that, or a pretty decent chunk of that, to students, because it trusts the knowledge that the students are learning in their business courses, is really something. I think it speaks to kind of the trust that we have in what students are learning in the classroom and what they're learning out of the classroom, when these same students are working on Wall Street and working in a lot of different spaces, kind of applying everything that they're learning. So hopefully some more examples and ways to show you how students are pursuing some slightly unique opportunities here at the university.
So we have some questions streaming in from parents, students, educators, heads of schools, principals. And one of them, before we get into the admissions, there are questions related to admissions, financial aid, scholarship, and such, that is about how new jobs are being created and what are the fastest growing roles that are predicted from now till, say, the next 5 years. We all hear of data science, computer science, Web3, and mostly tech-related jobs. But often we also don't hear about the humanics part of it, the interdisciplinaries, but also jobs which require students to, say, maybe prepare themselves to be the new age mental health professionals or healthcare professionals who also use technology to augment their work, or even in green tech or in sustainability or climate action, or even creative industries and curation. So there is so much to do in the future for students to sort of rewire themselves, institutions to prepare them. It is definitely challenging times, but also great excitement in higher ed institutions for sure. So share a little bit about the excitement with us. Like, what kind of research is being done on, say, future of jobs, or how universities have created research centers besides also offering the co-op program?
I think you're absolutely right. So much is changing and so much is going to change. And I think that's one thing Northeastern is pretty good at is change, given how much we change as an institution every single year. I think that very much impacts the education and opportunities being offered to students every single year as well. One of my favorite examples of a research institute that at the university that's doing some really, really cool work is at the College of Social Sciences and Humanities. They have the Ethics Institute. They've always had the Ethics Institute as a research institute, and they do fantastic work always. But in the last few years, they've opened up a division in collaboration with the Corey College of Computer Science, and it's called AI Information and Data Ethics. And all of the research they're doing is actually fueled by the College of Social Sciences and Humanities, using, of course, students and advisors from the Corey College of Computer Science. But it's largely a humanities effort, and I think that speaks again to that collaboration between different colleges at the university, the recognition that the kinds of roles that are going to be very, very important in the coming years are students are professionals who are interdisciplinary, who have multiple different skill sets and are aware of how different disciplines inform each other. And that's exactly what the AI ethics and AI and data ethics division at the Ethics Institute is doing. And it's really, really cool stuff, from research positions over the summer to mentorship opportunities with with alumni and with professionals working in these kinds of spaces. That's just a few examples that they do, and I think their research is extremely cutting edge. I also think that is something that for any student who's thinking of going into computer science, what I think is pretty cool about our Corey College of Computer Science is actually an oath that every computer scientist at Corey has to take, which is the Corey College oath. It's called for computing professionals, and it's an ethics oath, and it speaks very, very strongly, something that they have to take right at graduation before they enter the workforce. They're told about it when they arrive for matriculation on campus, of course, at the start of their first year, but they take the oath when they graduate, which is essentially, I'm not going to read it out to you. I don't even know where I would find it, but I've heard it a few times, and they're speaking to the fact that they are entering a space where the kind of work that they're doing is more than just being a software engineer, right? They're all going to go on to do work that is so critically important for what data and computer science is going to look like and how that's going to impact the lives of everyone. And so that with that comes a huge ethical responsibility. And Corey is one of the most exciting colleges to really embrace that ethical challenge that comes along with computer science in today's day and age, and really builds those skills and that knowledge into the curriculum, not just, of course, through the co-op opportunities. And then the last thing I'll mention is we had a really exciting recent partnership with Anthropic, bringing in Claude and all of Anthropic's exciting tools and features for full access to the entire Northeastern community to be able to use. And I think that AI forward approach is just going to show students how how these developments can impact all kinds of different industries, not just, it's not just the students in the Corey College of Computer Science or the College of Engineering that have access to Anthropic and Claude's resources. It's everybody, because it's actually going to impact everybody's work. And when used well, really improve and enhance everybody's work, regardless of which, field that they're in. So I think there's a lot at the university that shows students that they need to be open-minded and aware of where the workforce is heading, and really start to get into how, what kinds of opportunities are going to be created within their niches that really emphasize that AI forwardness. So I'd encourage you to look up the partnership with all the students there, to look up the partnership with Anthropic and Claude. It's been really fun, and it's been really useful for me as a staff member. So I can only imagine how useful it is to our students.
Fantastic. This is so exciting to hear that it's all integrated and best technologies are available to students. Let's segue into admissions, and there are many questions here. And one thing that I always impress on families and students is it could be a 3-step process. It's not just about aiming for that dream school and it's all or nothing. It's not like a winner takes it all kind of a situation. Students through the journey of applying to colleges, explore about themselves. They become a lot more self-aware. They make wise choices. They also learn from their mistakes. They live a normal high school life and not a student who's just burning the candle on both ends. To be aware about what to do, what they're good at, how to present what they're good at, and also be vulnerable in presenting who they are. Admitting that their biggest learning lessons were lessons that they learned were at the times when they failed. So students don't need to be Greek gods and goddesses in their application. They need to be human. And I think that element of discussion lacks in our culture today, perhaps. But the other thing, beyond self-awareness and authenticity and vulnerability, the other thing the students could do is build a learning stack. And what a better time than now? What better time will it be than now to do that? Not just information is available, but even intelligence is on hire. You can hire intelligence for X dollars per month or whatever subscriptions that you want to get. But how do you use it responsibly? How do you not become dumb, for that matter, while just using it? You need to pass through what that information or outputs that you get while prompting what you need. So there are so many issues where students, so many ways that students can learn today. There are online programs, there are such opportunities at universities like co-op. And finally, of course, the mindset of learning, unlearning, relearning. These are all so important traits which the student could demonstrate even in high school. So in short, what do you think would be an ideal candidate? I know there's no one type of candidate, but some of these traits which a student demonstrates through their work, through their projects, through what teachers have to say about them in school, all of that kind of summarize and give us a perspective from the other side of the table. We are helping students send in their applications, whereas you're the ones who are the receiving. So what are the things that you care for at Northeastern and institutions like Northeastern, which have such a highly selective sort of tag attached to them?
Yeah, I'll give that a crack. I mean, I think we're very fortunate to be in the position that we are, right? Because obviously we are lucky to be getting a large number of applications from some incredibly talented students from across the globe. And while we are, part of this fantastic network and have ability to recruit more students, we still have a finite number of beds that we can have students sleep on. And I think for us, to your point, Arjun, and I love the way you sort of set this question up, is because there isn't an ideal candidate. There isn't an ideal path for them to follow through high school in order to get into one of these highly selective institutions, however one wants to define that. Obviously, there's enough people that talk about being authentically you and being very genuine in the application process. That is extremely important because we are getting the most accurate picture of who you are as an applicant. Today, Northeastern is among the highly selective institutions in the country, but at the same time, we have students that have all different types of transcripts, right? We have students that have started out and continued to be extremely high achieving throughout their 4 years of high school. And we've got students that might not have started out at that same level, but shown very consistent improvements, have discussed how those improvements have taken place, and through their recommendations, we get another great insight into who they are. But for me, when I read an application, I'd love to see who the student is at the moment of application, where they have come from the time they started high school, and how at Northeastern we can provide them with an experience that will really benefit them, as well as gain from their exposure and experience. So there are various ways in which students obviously communicate this, right? Through what they've been involved with, the learning stack, like you mentioned, whether it's the use of their summers, whether it's the type of rigor that they've taken in the classroom, their essays, of course. But for us, it's the whole picture, right? At the end, we do obviously very much focus on a student's academic transcript. We would be doing the student a disservice if we admitted them and academically they weren't sound and weren't able to cope with the rigor that Northeastern provides. But we also have been able to identify some phenomenal students from across the globe who really have valued the experiences experiences they've had over the summers, taken rigorous classes, pushed themselves a little bit harder outside the classroom as well, and shown a sense of resilience. So for me, when I come across a resilient student, I'm automatically inclined toward being a little bit more in tune to their application, right? I automatically want to find ways in which they will really benefit from a Northeastern experience. And that resilience doesn't need to be overcoming an illness or coming back from an injury on the sports field. It can be resilience in any way, shape, or form. So for me, that's a big one. I know Anushka will have her own set of answers, as will our colleagues in Boston and our fellow colleagues across the country and other institutions as well. And I think that's what makes this process so exciting for us, but frustrating for the students, because we don't give them a definitive answer about what we'd like to look for. But my advice is be as authentically, genuinely you as possible. And whether it's Northeastern or another phenomenal institution that you call home for the next 4 years, that's your destiny. And I think that'll be an institution that'll serve you really well.
My perspective, I think with the fact that our programs are so unique at Northeastern, over 50% of Northeastern students start outside of the Boston campus. They start through really cool first-year programs like NUN, London Scholars. This year we have New York City Scholars. There's so many different opportunities, the Oakland campus. There's so many different opportunities within the Northeastern network that we really find the kinds of students that thrive best at Northeastern and that are the best fit are the students that like to learn outside of traditional classroom environments just as much, if not more, as they like to learn inside the traditional classroom environment. So while we are, as Karan mentioned, looking for very academically rigorous students, students' experiences outside the classroom matter to us more than I would say at many other schools, just again, because of the fact that their time at Northeastern is going to involve so much outside of the classroom learning that if they're excited about that, they're interested in that, they're passionate about that, they're probably going to have a better time at the university, right? So those are the kinds of students that we tend to lean in further on. The students, like I said, that enjoy learning in untraditional ways. Students at Northeastern are incredibly academically independent. Given the fact that we are a sizable institution, there are support services available, absolutely, but students take the initiative to ask for them. Those are the kind of students that are successful at the university, are students that can speak up for themselves, that are academically independent. They're mature. They are they're flexible and adaptable. Again, given the fact that we have so many different kinds of programs, flexibility and adaptability is a core requirement to be successful in a landscape that involves different campuses, co-ops, combined majors. All of this, an inherent sense of flexibility is something that I think Northeastern student usually possesses, and that's the kind of student that is a good fit. And academically, I want to remind students that, we are really looking at the student's performance within the environment and context that they're in. We're not comparing apples and oranges, right? Applications are evaluated within the context of where they come from. And so as a CBSE student, your application is evaluated as a CBSE student. There is really no advantage in the Northeastern process to taking AP classes as a CBSE student. And I cannot underscore this enough, right? You are taking it on an incredibly rigorous curriculum as a CBSE student. And there is enough being asked of you within school hours and enough being asked of you outside of school hours to meet the expectations of your academic curriculum at school. So we would so much rather see a student devote their time to doing well in their classes within the CBSE, as opposed to just taking classes outside of that in a different curriculum like the AP test that students typically take, just to prove that they've taken it. When, from a academics point of view, again, your performance in high school is more important to us. And secondly, from an advanced credit point of view, we award credit for the CBSE. So there's really no, additional advantage to taking AP courses just to take them. And I like to remind students of that you're doing so much. You're doing more as 10th, 11th, 12th graders than anyone historically has ever done. So whatever is available to you, we want to see you taking advantage of that. And this is, again, Karan and I are speaking solely for Northeastern. So I hope that gives a little bit more insight in terms of qualities, both academically as well as personally, that we typically look for.
Yeah, it's really great to get that acknowledgement that CBSE curriculum is regarded as equivalent to whatever new kids on the block, let's just say the IB, the A-levels in India. They've been around in other countries, but yes, over the past few decades, they've made good inroads in India. So let me kind of wrap this up with the idea from the admissions point of view. There's always this curiosity with parents that every year cost of education rises, and there's obviously that the threat of currency devaluation, which adds to the burden of families. How does this overall cost of attendance piece work for families who wish to sort of send their students from India with limited means? Again, you can speak for the entire gamut of universities and also specifically for what Northeastern stand is when it comes to international student financial aid or scholarships or grants once they're there. What kind of other financial resources are available even after they get into college?
First, and then Karan, if I miss anything, please pick that up. But in terms of there's just no getting around the fact that a U.S. education is incredibly expensive. Regardless of the family and what they're planning for their students' education, it's a big undertaking. It's a big investment, and it's so important for families to be having conversations early about what they are looking for, what they need from the university, what they can provide. Be open and transparent with their students. I think you're doing your student a favor, and this is my opinion. I think you're doing your student a favor by being transparent with them about the realities of what finances look like. They're going to very soon be in charge of their own, and it's a pretty rude shock, right, when you figure out how expensive everything is as an adult. And so I think starting early with those conversations with your student really sets them up for success. At least from a Northeastern perspective, merit scholarships is something that all students, regardless of their citizenship, are eligible for at the institution. And there's no additional steps that students need to take to be able to apply for a merit scholarship. There's no specific box that needs to be checked or an additional material or essay that needs to be submitted or a specific deadline that needs to be adhered to. There's nothing like that. We will automatically evaluate every single first year application that we receive. That's complete, right? And by one of our many deadlines, across all deadlines, we will automatically evaluate students for merit scholarships while we're considering them for admission. Our merit scholarships go up to about $30,000 to $35,000 per year, and these are first year merit scholarships that are renewable each year for up to 4 years. So that's the way that our scholarshiping works. There's a handful of continuing student scholarships that students can apply for, which is once they're already Northeastern students through Student Financial Services. There's a handful of scholarships that students can apply for as well. The dollar figure amounts are lesser than the first year scholarships, but they do exist for students that need or are interested in accessing additional scholarshiping opportunities beyond what they receive at the time of admission. And then for any, U.S. citizens or permanent residents who are students in India, you're eligible for need-based financial aid from the university and from the federal government. And there's a few documents called the FAFSA and the CSS profile that need to be submitted. So that's a little bit about how we work with students in terms of the scholarshiping opportunities that are available. Karan, I don't know if you have anything to share.
No, the only thing I'll add there is Northeastern, obviously, with something that we're very proud of, which we've spoken about a bunch on this session, the co-op. I think that many of you may have missed it, but Anushka did mention that about upwards of 95% of our co-ops are paid positions. So, this is also another big tool or aspect that we speak about when speaking about finances and scholarship, because it is something to keep in mind that while students are doing these co-ops, which of course, as Anushka mentioned, can be anywhere between 4, sometimes 6 months for a lot of them, students will be making money and earning that for them and actually not paying the university any tuition during that time. So as you look to chart out what that 4-year expense becomes, yes, Northeastern is a private institution that is expensive for international students, given that we only offer merit-based scholarships. However, one of the most important aspects of being a Northeastern student, which is probably one of the reasons you're applying, is the co-ops, and upwards of 90% of those are paid positions. So when students end up doing the long and short of it, the math really evens out to it being no different than a lot of other peer institutions. But these are, of course, factors that families need to make internally within their unit. Everyone's realities are different, and we completely acknowledge that. What our role or what we aspire to do and aspire to communicate is be as transparent with our students from the get-go as possible, right? We spend the better part of August through September, or August through October rather, traveling to different parts of the globe and speaking to thousands of students. And our number one priority is, yes, of course, to recruit world-class students that are highly motivated and will do fantastic things for us as well as themselves. But we also need to acknowledge that it might not be a reality for everyone. And our job is to try and communicate every aspect of what a Northeastern University financial experience will look like. And that's just something I wanted to add as well.
Great. There's something about your job titles, which kind of prompted me to think about the next question. There's global pathways in yours, Anushka, and there's global campuses in yours, Karan. So, and this is fairly not just unique, but I think very few institutions have multiple campuses, and they're also expanding rapidly. How does this work? And in an age where students and parents might have worries about a certain location for geopolitical reasons, instability, or their feeling of insecurity to send their kids in a specific region, Northeastern is perhaps one of the few institutions that is offering sort of options across few continents. So yeah, explain how this works. What is Global Pathways? What is the need of global campuses? And how does this all kind of make sense for families sitting in India?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in there. Great question. And, I think Northeastern in many ways is uniquely positioned to support students. We are so committed to an international education just by virtue of the fact, again, that we have campuses all over the world. And I think that being committed to an international education doesn't really work unless you're committed to international students. They are who make an international education possible. And so we are incredibly committed to our international students. And in many ways, like I said, we're uniquely positioned to manage some of the challenges that may be going on all around us. And I think that families really should be open-minded to these kinds of opportunities that Northeastern brings to the table. By having undergraduate campuses in Boston, Oakland, and London, a really exciting new partnership with a university in New York, we have the ability to bring students to a variety of different opportunities, right? So by having all these different campuses, the key to note is that they are all part of the Northeastern network. And so they're all one university system, which means that students are able to move around between different campuses as they'd like to. There's two primary ways that students will be able to move around and access this level of flexibility. The first is the fact that we have a lot of first-year programs, and that chart a global pathway for a student that's built into their time at the university. I work closely with our students in London Scholars, for example, where students spend their first year at Northeastern London as part of a cohort and then transition to the Boston campus for their years 2 to 4. So that's one way that you have a preset global experience and this kind of mixing already built into the undergraduate experience that students are going to have. Students who are really loving London, some of them will even work with Northeastern London's admissions office to see if they can switch into one of Northeastern London's degree programs to earn a UK bachelor's degree for 3 years. So say you start out in London Scholars and you are originally supposed to come to the Boston campus after the first year, but you're really loving London. And maybe now you're interested in continuing on your education at NU London, earning a UK bachelor's degree. There are pathways and channels for you to have those conversations with the admissions team at NU London to see if you can switch over from your US bachelor's degree to your UK bachelor's degree. There's that opportunity there. For students who start out at Northeastern London, who are earning 3-year UK bachelor's degrees, they have the opportunity to spend a semester at the Boston campus as part of those 3 years. They have the opportunity to, once they finish their 3-year bachelor's degree in the UK, come to one of our American campuses for a 4th year and get an American bachelor's degree in that 4th year. So in 4 years, they would get a UK and US bachelor's degree, which is the double degree program. These are, I don't expect everyone to walk away knowing all of our different programs and pathways from this session, but I'm really just trying to show that there's so much opportunity to mix and match, to spend time in Oakland, London, Boston, New York, and beyond through all of our partnerships and collaborations with universities all over the world. There's ways to make your 4 years incredibly unique unique, and also 4 years that feel exciting to you, that meet your family where you're at, and that are, that ring true with what you were looking for from your undergraduate experience. Things are changing, and I think as a university, we are so lucky to have the resources to be able to support students with that change. So we just ask students to be open-minded, to look into all of our different opportunities and realize that we are heading towards a world where being open-minded and being flexible and considering more than just how things have always been done is really going to serve students well. I think students who are prepared to take on this international landscape that we're currently in. So just again, 4 campuses, right, that you can mix and match. Ways to do that in your first year and beyond, ways to do that as a second, third year student as well. I think it's just all about again, that the point I mentioned earlier, the students we're looking for, they speak up for themselves, right? They know what they're interested in, they know what they want, and they share that, and then they access the resources to make that happen. So if you're a student like that, there's really just no shortage of opportunities for you to be able to access more than what you might be able to at a peer institution. Karan, I know, Arjun, we're running short on time, so I'll give a quick plug for the fact that Karan and I will be in all over India in August and September, visiting your high schools, also holding large-scale events in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bangalore. So just keep an eye out. Arjun, is the chat feature something, if I send something, can everybody see it, or is that just for us?
No,
Sorry,
the chat is live. You can.
Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'll just drop a link to a form that if you complete, then you will be able to know when we are in your area and when we are around, Karan and myself, for you to be able to come and meet us, ask questions, learn more information. We really don't want this to be the last time that you hear from us, and we make a concerted effort to go as many places as we can in August and September. So I'll just drop that link right now. Please fill it out if you can, and we would love to continue this conversation with you in person closer to home.
So we have that link now, Anushka. Thanks for the overview of the global campuses, the pathways. The one big elephant in the room right now is the geopolitical uncertainties and confusing and conflicting messages. Authorities that countries like the US are sending out. What advice would you give? Last question for the day would be, to navigate this. Kids who've already gotten into Northeastern or any other institution in the US, what is changing or what hasn't changed or what could change? So yeah, anything that you could share would be useful.
Yeah, so I think, no, go ahead. No, go for it. I think the theme of today has been the value that international students have and that they bring to campuses in North America and globally, right? So I think, thank you for the question, Arjun, because I think it's important to discuss it as well. First and foremost, we just like to acknowledge the uncertainty and the feelings of anxiousness that are probably in the minds of several parents and of course the students as well, who have worked tirelessly on their applications, done all the hard work, and now seem to be faced with these uncertainties and these questions. So I mean, both Anushka and I completely acknowledge that, and trust me when I say we've been working tirelessly ourselves with students on a one-to-one basis, trying to walk them through all the steps required. The reality is at this stage there is a limited amount of information that institutions have as well as to how these things are going to progress. We remain committed not only to international education, but like we said, more importantly, to our international students. They make up a vital and a focal part of our campuses, each one of the 4 of them. And Northeastern's, everything we just discussed about how special we are and how unique we believe we are in and amongst our peer institutions ceases to exist without our international students. So you can be rest assured that not only us, but I would say all of our peer institutions are working very, very hard to ensure that there are pathways for each of our students to be on campuses that they have been admitted to and have very robust, very meaningful, very engaging experiences, the same ones that we promised when we visited several high schools, last year, the year before that, and even the years before that. We remain committed to our international students and the international approach that we take, and are continuing to work within the confines of the rules and regulations that we are given. But at this stage, the advice that I would give families of students who have been admitted this year to sort of head off in the fall, in August, is just keep an eye on a year out for updates and informations. Continue to work very closely with your territory managers like Anushka and myself at the institutions that you've been admitted to, as well as the equivalent of the visa offices and everyone that's working on getting the paperwork to you on time. And for students that are in the process of creating their applications for next year admission or the year after that, just know that this is constantly changing. Last year, Arjun and I were discussing different issues that don't exist today, and those have sort of been pushed under the rug or are behind us. So know that this is a constantly evolving, constantly changing type of dynamic. But like we have in the past, we will get through this with the same resilience that we spoke about, and we continue to be focused on our number one priority, which is you, students. So Anushka, if you want to add anything to that, but I think at this stage, that's the messaging that we'd like to give.
Thanks. That's very reassuring. And with that, we've reached the end of time. And Neeti ma'am, you can also wrap the session up and give us all the encouragement to keep doing this with the community and get the information out as things sort of change and more opportunities are available to students.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't even realize that 1 hour is over. So that was the impact of the conversation here. But thank you for joining us for this insightful session on the admissions and scholarships at Northeastern University, USA. As we've already discussed as part of our CBSE Global Webinar Series. And of course, Karan, Anushka, and Arjun sir, all of you, a big thank you from all of us here. And your inputs have not only demystified the application process in some way, but also empowered our students. I can understand the counselors and the educators, I think, to think more intentionally about the international education per se. So we hope today's discussion has sparked some ideas, answered some questions. I know 1 hour is not the time I can really be able to take up all the queries and put all the questions into the frame, but also in some way we have set the ball rolling, and we hope today's discussion would take us forward to continue to engage, learn, and support one another in shaping bright, globally connected futures. Thank you once again. We look forward to welcoming you at future sessions, and you never know, we might meet in August. So with that spirit, thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. And of course, the people who have joined us, there are about 680, 690 live audience, which we had, and probably the others will just use the YouTube link to just have a feel of the entire session. Thank you so much. Have a good time. Thank you.